Yo! This is the Lunch Club here. It's Donovan Davis here. I'm a first-year student here at Elon. I'm sitting next to me with Peter Wentzel.
Hello, what's up?
And Sahrfelix flexing over here.
You know what to do.
All right, so our topic here today, we're going to talk about women's rights. And
I'll take it over from here. So one major question that needs black women were forced to become the backbone of the civil rights movement. Throughout the time period, African American women probably suffered the most due to various reasons, the main being because of the color of their skin and as well as their gender. The result of this constant hardship and discrimination led to desire of wanting to be involved and the need to be part of the cure and or fix. From this came many strong, impactful African American female figures who have not been given the credit they rightfully deserve, such as Rosa Parks, Ella Baker, each playing their own unique part of curing the world of its ignorance. So coming off of that, have any of you guys ever heard of Rosa Parks?
No, unfortunately, I don't think I have, sorry.
Yeah, I've heard of Rosa Parks.
You have, Peter.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Rosa Parks became a symbol of African American who struggled for equal rights and freedom, and she was known for the mother of freedom. One of her most well-known statements is, "Some people said I was just tired or old, so I did not offer the seat. But I was neither tired nor old on that day. I was just tired of making a concession." I'm pretty sure that's what Rosa Parks said.
Oh yeah, that went along with the whole, that started the whole bus boycott, didn't it?
Yeah, the bus boycott was huge back in the civil rights movement, and Rosa Parks, to her credit, was a big pusher and forward this movement very heavy during the time period.
Actually, thinking about this, there's also one other thing that I know about Rosa Parks. During one election season, Mrs. Parks made 3 attempts to register to vote before she finally succeeded. The thought of giving in or succumbing never crossed her mind. This strong stance is something that many across the country were able to draw strength from in many different ways, especially since the heroic stance was by an African American female.
Yeah, I think, truthfully, like with Rosa Parks, what she did here, she's like an inspiration to a lot of women around the world, you know, just to take a stand in something you believe in, something great can come out of it.
Maybe not even women, maybe just people in general. In
I
general,
think
yeah.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
And that's coming up to the next, exactly what also Ella Baker did.
Yeah, Ella Baker, exactly.
She was another great and strong figure during the civil rights movement. And unlike Rosa Parks, she was not a household or very well-known name at the time, but still played a major role fighting for African American rights.
Yeah, jumping off that, I mean, Ella Baker was the pillar of strength and good sense to lean on. Ella really came across as just being such an honest and open, wise person with unending resources. Baker set a good example for women and teenagers during the civil rights movement and strengthened their resolution and fight for their own rights. And she was really another pillar of an amazing woman during this time period.
One thing that's cool about that is that, like, Ella Baker kind of got her strength, or like the idea of wanting to contribute, from Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
And it was crazy how she was inspired by the historic bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955. And she even founded an organization in friendship to raise money for a civil rights movement in the South. This organization would be known as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with Baker leading as director and Martin Luther King Jr. being the organization's first president. That's wild.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy stuff right there.
Yeah.
All right, so after focusing on African American women, Rosa Parks and Ella Baker, let's try to also maybe talk about how much of an impact the white women have played during the civil rights movements. Donovan, maybe you could give us some information on that?
Of course. So among women activists, African Americans led the way, but white women and other females of color were allies, sometimes at great risk to themselves and their families. In contrast to what many may know or choose to believe, a large amount of white women supporters were Southerners, in fact. And two examples of white Southern women who sacrificed and helped play a role in the civil rights movement are Virginia Durr and Leanna Smith.
Oh, I know them actually, yeah. Because I think both of them were well-established Southern white families. And they relinquished the Southern way of life in the 1930s and 1940s, I'm pretty sure. And they also challenged racial segregation and discrimination, which I really value a lot.
Yeah.
And as stated by Christina Green in the Oxford Research Encyclopedias, they both paid a price for their apostasy, becoming pariahs in their homeland, but they continued to support black activists and the civil rights movement throughout the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah, these two were both kind of, again, you don't hear much about them in the news and in the history books, but really played a key role. As long with another woman that I would like to talk about, Anne Browden, who was she was another white female activist during this time period. One of the most influential and impactful white women during this time period. She was Ella Baker's closest friends, and she was a native of Alabama and was one of the unsung groups of white Southerners who were deeply committed to the African American freedom movement of the 1950s and 60s.
Okay.
Also, her talent as a journalist and passion as an activist makes her a dynamic combination of not only relying the stories of injustice in the world, but also working to change them. As stated by Kristen Green, Anne and her husband Carl faced subversion charges after selling their home to a black couple in Louisville, just days after the Brown decision, which is crazy to think about. That they got in trouble for selling their house to just an African-American family just 50, 60 years ago, not that long ago.
No, not at all. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe also a different topic that I really wanted to bring up today in this discussion in general was the desegregation of public schools.
Yeah.
And
I could pick up to start that.
yeah, go ahead. I'm interested. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so many people would be surprised to learn that the desegregation of public schools was so largely driven by girls and women. What about this fight made us so attracted to women or unattracted to men working in other civil rights fields? During this time period, women and young girls seemed to show stronger, more eagerness to thought of school desegregation.
Because most people, including African Americans, believed that there was too much hostility between the races and coexistence in the school was but a dream.
Yeah, you can do it.
Rachel Devlin, an associate professor of history at Rutgers University, she actually stated in her interview, Tessie Prevost Williams and Leona Tate integrated T.J. Sims Elementary School in New Orleans in 3rd grade.
Yeah, I actually have some more data about that. It was Tessie Prevost Williams and Leona Tate, but also Gal Etini. It was the three of them received the worst violence that I had found in my research about this topic because they were so young and so little. People would punch them, trip them, spit in their food. It was really terrible what people were doing to them.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, they said they could hardly go to the bathroom because that was the most dangerous space. It was like a war zone inside that school. It's just terrible to think about.
Wow, and also think about the resilience that these young women have had to go through. I think that's just hard to imagine.
Yeah.
One would think that it would have been a crippling experience, but they sensed from a very early age the weird economy of what they were doing.
Yeah, and just to go off that some more, when these African American girls approached these schools in attempts to walk through the front door, such large crowds would gather because it was truly radical to see a black child attempting to walk into a white school. Nonetheless, a black child with a black girl during that time period was... they showed real guts to really try to do that,
Yeah, and also the other things about girls is that they were exceptional at accomplishing this task. So, to speak to principals and lawyers and to the press as well, just to be poised, you have to be personable and diplomatic. And young black women had sense attributes.
Yeah, and they dealt with constant verbal and sexual harassment on the streets of southern cities due to what they were trying to accomplish in the school systems. It was drilled into them as a way to protect their dignity, but also very few African American girls and young women did not at some point in their lives work in a white home, and they had to learn how to navigate around white people. And final thing I'll talk about on this is how black girls were idealistic for the unsung hero role that was placed upon them. Even with that, these choices of throwing young black girls into the fire and trying to desegregate wasn't really a conscious choice. And I mean, just reflecting on that, that's just crazy to me to think of what these young girls had to go through just to go to elementary school.
Well, yeah, but thinking about it now, look at what they've accomplished, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They've really made the difference that we talk about now. Otherwise, without those girls, otherwise we could not be sitting here talking about this really inspiring topic.
Yeah, for sure. Really unsung heroes to all this.
Yeah. All right. So now, after talking for a while about this topic, I'm just asking you two now. What do you really think is like a conclusion? What should we really learn from this podcast? What do you think?
Sorry to start this one off.
I think one of the main things I feel like we have to get across to our audience, to the Elon community, is make sure that they know that Black men provided many different things to the civil rights movement, such as organizing events, developing concepts, and carrying the load of being the backbone. They were the ignition for countless supporters around the country and made hard sacrifice on various occasions throughout this whole time period.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And although because of their race and gender disadvantage, they did not have institutional power. Their roles as mothers, housewives, workers, movement helpers, and organization leaders still made it possible for them to use different forms of resistance to fight for their own benefit, and to receive education and obtain more civil rights. Without these unsung heroes, America would not have made nearly as much progress as it has over the past few decades when dealing with women's rights.
So,
yeah, I think just the main thing is to take away from this is we have grown so much so far. Due to such great people along the lines as Rosa Parks, Ella Baker,
and Braden.
Yeah, all these fantastic women that I think kind of don't get the
recognition that they deserve.
Exactly, they're kind of in the background a bit when I think we should talk about them a bit more in like history classes and those type of things.
And hopefully, from this, little girls that hear our podcast, or any woman in general can take power and feel empowered from knowing that what great history that they have before them.
I mean, these women should be inspirations.
Yeah, they should be.
And, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, guys, for listening.
It was fun, guys. See you. We out. Lunch Club.
Peace.